Are we assessing under energy, or are we gonna science person?
Well, the old way was both.
Yeah, but where
With
did
last
they go?
year's.
Yeah, that's what I think. So are we gonna do that under energy, or are we gonna do it in, what's the
Trying to think which one.
processes?
Structures and processes.
Yeah.
Are we, what, under what? I'm sorry.
Where are we gonna place this?
Based on our discussion that, when we kind of set it up,
Right.
it was under energy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But this was part of the sequence that is like this, then photosynthesis, respiration, and cycling of matter and energy, like, or cycling of matter, that's all part of this discussion.
That would be processes, I know with DNA, RNA, it's structures. You know, structure and processes, so that part too. But that's on
So
ours,
what
and
are we
ours
gonna
follow.
put under structures and processes?
no, I think we keep it under.
Just
energy.
cells?
Under structures and processes, what do we
It
have?
would be its own standard. I mean,
I
it
know,
would
but
be,
what's gonna
What
go
did we
under
put
it?
there? We have, according to our board in the other room.
yeah, we have
Structures and processes, we had,
If you look under level standards, we have, currently we are doing cells, hierarchical organization, and feedback mechanisms and homeostasis.
and then we'll put DNA replication and photosynthesis under that same strand.
DNA and protein
Okay,
synthesis,
okay.
not photosynthesis.
Not photosynthesis, it's
Not photosynthesis, no, photosynthesis we're putting under energy.
And,
And cell respiration, cycling of matter, carbon cycle, macromolecules, and enzymes.
Okay.
and I think that it's just a matter of where we.
So is the
where
next
we
step
need
gonna,
standards.
is the next step then going to be respiration photosynthesis?
Yeah.
It just depends on which way you're going through it, but yeah, that would be the idea.
Okay.
Wait, I pasted in, let's see. I pasted in. Okay, the middle school standard and the high school standard that both
Yeah.
relate to this, and then the two standards that we wrote. And so I think the discussion is, again, we had this discussion last time,
Right.
what do we need to test about macromolecules? Like, what did you actually assess? Because I have a feeling that, well, I wasn't here this one, for, I know we did this, but is this really what we need to assess, or is this a lab that we use, you know what I mean, I don't know.
Right. So you're saying, is this a formative or is this a summative that we?
Right, is like the nutrition lab a content summative, or is it a content formative that we use to teach about the things that are in those substances? And then we assess the science practice grades on that?
I know we were doing
I
science
know we-
practice grades on
yeah.
that, for sure.
But, and I think we talked about doing it more of a nutrition project, cause that's really interesting to the kids and helpful to tell them that like hot Cheetos maybe don't meet all of your nutritional needs on a daily basis. I don't know. It looks like both of the NDSS standards talk about the
Right.
recombining, which I think.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that these are supposed to cover that in middle school.
Yeah, but they're not gonna have it next year.
Yeah.
Unless they're really quick.
Yeah.
They're not what?
They're not gonna
They won't
have
have
what they won't have those
Oh,
middle school ones
okay.
next year.
Cause yeah, that's the structure and process part of it, so if they cover the.
Well, I think the lab could quantify as intended by the NGSS because it is nutrition. I think we just have to make the leap so they understand that these are the raw materials that go in and get broke down. Yeah. Definitely
Maybe
science
a
practices.
First piece of evidence to then be
Mhm.
built on later, that we do that first, which I think normally we do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's such a good, I never want to lose that. It is one of my favorite activities that we do because I think it opens the kids' eyes to,
Yes.
oh, what's in my food.
Yeah, this applies to me.
We did 3 years ago, we did matching the meals with who it would be best
Right.
for based on what's in the meal and what the needs of that person were.
Yeah.
And I think that discussions like that about nutrition meet like the idea that we break these down to make other things. Like the reason I need protein if I'm an athlete is because I'm building muscle mass, not because I need energy. Like that there's a
Right.
relationship there between
And I think that if, to do a different, to be able to assess on another standard, I think that
Should be done that way.
could be a 4. Like the whole idea of
Sorry.
who does this nutrition
Right,
fit best
right.
for, I think that would be a really good, easy leap to a 4, and then we'd have offered them the opportunity to practice that 4.
Yeah.
Well, I think we had that here, actually, we can go back and look at that. I can explain the function of organic molecules, including carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, and that's our level.
Yeah, so if we like those levels, and I think they were good
I did.
levels, I just don't know if that's when we wrote our test that we actually, because I wasn't here for how you evaluated, I'm just not sure what that test actually looked like, if it really was.
Well, we did have labels, because I had like 5 labels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Saved
Within
On the test,
on the
yeah.
test. So the lab, I think we used more of as a
Science practice.
science practices.
Cool.
And then on the test, then we had food labels, and they had,
Yeah.
I mean, there was other things too, but
Mhm.
there was definitely food labels on the lab, or the test.
Okay. Well, but food labels just for the sake of reading food labels, or food labels for the sake of like using that knowledge? Does
But
that
they
make
tied in with
sense?
multiple choice and it was
There were multiple
just-
choice, but then there was also, I think
Like-
our level 4 question was like something like the number 4 up there,
Okay.
where we gave them requirements, they had to come up with a special, they had to come up with a special diet.
Cause I remember they had to like, be able to match the amount of total protein, you know, with
Right.
that way, I was trying to think.
That was one of them, and there was another one.
Could we also add to the multiple choice, like we have in other tests, add where they have to write a statement as to why they selected that answer?
Yeah, I think that I love the label ones. My problem with some of the multiple choice is that it's just like point and find stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's more like, for me, that's like the level like 1. Like if you can't read the label, that's the level, like that's the basic skill you need to be successful in this unit. But understanding, which one of these foods would be best if I just needed some energy. Well, I want the one with high carbohydrates then, and why? So that maybe that would be what I'd like the 3 to be, is
Right.
pick this one if I just need this simple statement, and then the 4 is if I'm an athlete, you know what I mean? Like the difference between a specific characteristic and
I think, because we had something about, I think that there was one, at least, I don't remember
That was
which
the test we
test.
used last time. One you used?
Part
is
of
that-
it,
Is that when you
yeah.
used in
That was-
this year?
Then we added a few things for honors.
No, I didn't see it. This was the unit I was in the dark about.
Okay, so, it was like two parts. Well, we had the label lab, okay, that was one. And then, so that was for our science practices development model. And then for the energy standard, I can explain the functions of organic macromolecules, including carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. And we had them listed the functions, and then we had an application section to it, give an example of what a nutrition label on a healthy food might be. For example, what amounts of carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins would be. Explain why. They bombed it. If a person was diabetic and should stay away from sugars, what should they be looking for on their food labels? And some of these, they got some of these, but some of these they didn't. If a person's on a low-fat diet, what should they be looking for on their food labels? And if a person was a bodybuilder, what should they be looking for on their food labels? Why do you think the government requires labels on all food?
That's an interesting one before.
I think on those, though, does it say why?
We said
Why would,
our level 3 was using nutritional labels. I can successfully evaluate food items for nutritional requirements based on the amount of lipids, carbohydrates, and proteins.
like on the bodybuilder one, does it just say which one, or does it say which one and why?
What should they be looking for on their food labels, not why.
I think that would improve if we put.
Yeah, because so then the 4 was, I can successfully evaluate food, number 3 basically, and in a written analysis and make diet recommendations for real world dietary needs.
That's the
That's-
line.
So those were the application.
So I think the 3 is like the really specific. I'm trying to watch my sugars.
Yeah.
Which one should I be avoiding?
Right.
Is a 3, because you understand how those two things
Right.
relate. But then the 4 is maybe like given a general situation, now can you do it when there's more factors at play? Because if I'm an athlete, I don't just need protein.
Right.
I also need carbohydrates
Right.
because I need both things.
Yeah, so I think the levels on that then need to be tweaked a little bit, we get 3 and 4. But other than that, it wasn't
Okay,
bad.
so, because again, we had the other training where we leveled them differently. So using nutrition labels, I can evaluate requirements.
This is under, maybe it's in the shared PL, you probably have it.
Which
I don't know if you have this
The
test.
test,
Yeah, this is under my strangely worded Bio PLC.
can you move it into the?
I can move all this stuff over.
Well, I'm gonna reorganize.
I have the technology.
So using nutrition. Using nutrition
Right,
labels,
because I
I
have
can
to.
successfully evaluate food items for nutritional requirements in specific situations based on the amounts of lipids, carbohydrates, and proteins in the food.
There. Let's see.
Bless you in advance.
Bless you now. And then, in a written, for real world dietary needs.
See them all there now? Under macromolecules, all the files they have in there.
I'll try not to highlight any more stuff. Probably did
Keep your
that.
fingers to yourself, Kevin.
I will put them in the assorted shares, folders. so
Using
you know
nutrition
what-
labels, I can successfully evaluate, I don't like the instructor context, that was never clear. What would be the help that we would provide?
For two,
Yeah,
Would be, I think, maybe, I don't know if this would be too much help, but maybe a chart of some sort that lists them and lists in general, lists what they do. Is that too much
I was
help?
thinking that, but that is not a
It
whole.
might be
That's
too
all I
much
did,
help.
they should
so,
know that.
one of the things I did was I could pull out like their lab that we did to help them on the test, so maybe just having the food label lab out would be enough of a support to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So that you, like, there'd be nothing directly from us, but just having that food label lab might be enough of a
Okay.
reminder.
And if it's